while the Texas Longhorns kind of stumbled into the college football playoff, this is a team that could be very dangerous in this tournament. This is a team that very much has what it takes to make a run. They just have to figure a few things out. And what we saw in the SEC championship game is that this is a team that has its flaws, but also has the solutions on its team to win in this tournament. We're taking a look at how they beat the Clemson Tigers and what they need to do to start building some momentum to make a run. Texas has been a really fun team this year. You know, the strength of schedule is what people talk about, how they haven't quote unquote beaten anybody, but this is still a really exciting team. This is a team that has explosive talent. When healthy, they're really fun to watch. This defense is elite, and they provide a lot of obstacles for the teams that they face. Clemson is up first, and they have a lot of opportunities to showcase what they can do. They're 11-2 this year. They've had, their ups and downs. I think they started off strong in non-conference play. They played some pretty weak teams outside of Michigan, of course. The road trip to Michigan wasn't as impressive of a win as we originally thought, but still an impressive win nonetheless. Then they go and beat Mississippi State and Oklahoma to get to 6-0, and then the Georgia meltdown, the first one, happens. And I think that if you're a Texas fan, you felt like, okay, well, we turned the ball over a lot. We did get some turnovers. It just didn't go our way. And then, they had a little bit of a hangover game against Vanderbilt. But then you have this, kind of a big win against Florida, a team that looked much better in the second half. The struggles against Arkansas, every once in a while you're going to have those struggles. But again, one thing we saw was this defense was playing really well. They were holding teams in check, and you didn't really necessarily need the offense to necessarily do anything. The end of the regular season, you beat Texas A&M in a 17-7 back and forth defensive battle. That was definitely one where you thought, okay, maybe this offense maybe has some issues, but also maybe the defense is pretty good. There's definitely things that you can bring out from both sides on that. And then obviously the SEC championship game does not go their way, but I think what people need to remember is that Texas definitely had those games where they could have won those games. It wasn't like they didn't have a chance. They definitely had a chance to beat Georgia and just came up short. So I think that, yes, it's very frustrating how things ended and how the season kind of went in certain games, but you also have, again, you have the answers on this team. You have the ability to solve most of those problems with the personnel you have on the roster. And that kind of leads us to the keys to the game for Texas. This is a Texas team that, again, super talented, has what it takes to pull off this win. And the first thing is you're going to have to get after Cade Klubnik. If you want to take Clemson out of this game early and often, doesn't matter if your own offense is struggling. If you get after Cade Klubnik early in this game, you will feel really good about your chances to win this football game. Texas is a team that wreaks havoc up front, and that is something that they can do against a Clemson team that has shown that it can be vulnerable up front. This is an offensive line for Clemson that doesn't necessarily, thrive at a high level at anything. So you're looking at a team that, at least consistently, I should say, that group does not thrive consistently at a high level. And that's, if you're picking between Clemson's offensive line and Texas defensive line, Texas defensive line wins that matchup all day, every day. And you just have to do it. You have plenty of talent to make that happen. And it's going to be fun to see how they do that in this game. Because if Cade Klubnik gets in rhythm, it means that this Clemson offensive line is exceeding expectations. And it means that Texas is in big trouble if that happens. If you get after him, though, you feel pretty good about what the defense can do. The second thing, which kind of goes with, if your defense is locked in, Quinn Ewers absolutely has to be locked in. There were times in the SEC championship game where, you saw Quinn Ewers look dialed in. He was making really good throws, stepping into his throws, throwing with purpose. And then there were other times where it was like he was just lofting it up to simple out routes or flat routes. And it just didn't look like he was mentally all there. It didn't look like he was mentally ready to play in the SEC championship. You have to get him locked in. And I think that at times he has been a really fun quarterback to watch. He's been someone that has the ability to make big plays, and we just haven't seen that on a consistent basis. And that is something that cannot happen in the college football playoff. I'm not saying that it's going to, but if you're a Texas fan, you need Quinn to absolutely be dialed into this game plan, dialed into what needs to happen to get you to the next round, because he's not looking at, and neither is this team, they're not looking ahead to the next matchup. They're looking at Clemson. How do we beat the Clemson Tigers, and how do we find ways to get where we need to go? The other thing is pick up the pace. I think at times Texas has slowed things down, and I think it works for them at times, but at the same time, picking up the pace puts a lot of pressure on Clemson. This is not a Clemson team that is ready to play an absolute barn burner of a game. This is not a Clemson team that has the explosive plays in them to keep pace with this Texas offense. Texas absolutely has more talent than the Clemson Tigers right now, and they have the ability to control the game. They have the ability to dictate the pace. And if they're going to win this game, they have to do that. And it starts with all the players that we're going to talk about here, and it starts with Quinn Ewers. Now, I will say Quinn Ewers is a big X factor in this, but I also know that Steve Sarkisian has an idea of what he wants to do with the quarterback situation. Arch Manning, plain and simple, has to play. You have to have some sort of role for him. We have seen too many times that he has been successful in his limited role. He's not necessarily going to play a ton of snaps, but we've also seen Quinn step up and play a lot better because he knows, hey, if you're not up for it, this guy's going to come in and take over. And I think that's a good thing. I think that true competitors will want to do better. And it's not necessarily, I don't want Arch to have this success. It's, okay, Arch is playing to this level. I can't let my teammates down. I need to make sure that they get the best out of me, and I give them exactly what they deserve to help win this game. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that Sarkisian has seen that he can get better play from Quinn Ewers by putting Arch Manning in. And that's really exciting if you're a Texas fan, and that means a lot of good things for this offense. That also means the wide receivers thrive. Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, you have guys that are really exciting to watch. Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore has stepped up as of recently as well. So you have plenty of talent to utilize downfield, but you need your quarterback to play at a certain level for them to even be relevant. The wide receivers can't throw the balls to themselves. They need someone to get them the ball. And if Quinn Ewers is playing like we've seen so far this year at times, we know that he's capable of getting them the ball. And this is an explosive offense that can make life miserable for the Clemson Tigers. The defense can do the same thing. Again, getting after this offense starts in the trenches. Colin Simmons, Vernon Broughton, you have a number of players up front that are going to make life miserable for Clemson. If they are playing at a high level, you feel pretty good, as you've seen so far this year against multiple other teams, that this is going to be an easier win if both sides are playing to their potential. This is a defensive line that is loaded. Anthony Hill and the linebackers are obviously super talented too, but if the defensive line is playing at its potential, the linebackers are basically just doing cleanup duty. They are not doing much, and they're okay with that. That's kind of what you need if Clemson is going to have trouble and if Texas is going to win this game. Now, the players that you need to pay attention to if you're Texas looking at the other side, everything starts with Cade Klubnik. That shouldn't be a surprise. How he plays probably dictates how close Clemson plays in this game, and if Texas is pulling away with this one, or if they're in an absolute battle. If they can't get to Cade Klubnik, then it comes down to explosive plays. Guys like Phil Maffa, they're going to be physical in the run game, but the explosive plays at wide receiver, Antonio Williams, how do those guys step up and play, and how do they create explosive plays? If Texas doesn't give up explosive plays, you feel pretty good about where they're at. Same with the defense, or for Texas's offense against Clemson's defense. Barrett Carter, super talented. And one thing that's really nice for Texas is they practice against that defensive line. And that preps you for a defensive line like the Clemson Tigers. TJ Parker, Peter Woods, those are two of the better defensive linemen in college football. Parker has 11 sacks, 19 tackles for loss. Peter Woods is a huge player who has plenty of power in that frame. He provides a lot of challenges for Texas' offensive line, and I hope that Kelvin Banks is back and 100% healthy. He probably won't be 100% when you're playing hurt like that, but this is an offensive line for Texas that needs to make a big statement in the first round, and I think that they can do that. It's just going to be difficult because Parker and Woods and that group of players is so talented. Texas is the better team. I don't think that anybody's really debating that. It's just a matter of can they prove that on the field. Clemson is an underdog. They're going to be kind of a scrappy team that is going to claw their way and try to keep themselves in this game. But if Texas plays to its potential, this game should be over relatively quickly. And if Texas finds Quinn Ewers' best game, or at least he's playing close to that, the offense should put up points. The defense should be able to do what it'll do. And this should be a win for Texas if they're playing at that level.